All right, so I'm going to tell you a little bit how we use data and with our technology, and I'll give you a little bit of background about me. Have you guys ever heard of an app called OneApp? Okay, put your hand up really high if you heard about an app called OneApp. All right, well, that's good and bad. Bad is sucks that no one's heard about my app called OneApp, but the good news is I get to tell you about it. So we built an app that basically uses technology to create access to housing for anybody looking for a place to live. And it's the first time technology and data had ever been used in this way. And it was a very creative approach to solving a problem that every city and everybody is suffering with right now. So let me give you a little background about me and why we built this app in the first place. So I actually went to school to be a fireman. I had no idea I was going to do anything in technology, and I actually got injured in the academy really bad. It was this training apparatus where we had to, it was timed, and we had to get water to the fire, and we only had about 30 seconds to get water there, and we were parked exactly 100 meters from the hydrant, and the horn blows, and I was one of the bigger guys, so my job was to come out and get on the back of the truck and grab 250 pounds of hose. And this is the old days, hose now on the new trucks is on a spool on the sides, you just pull it. But the old days was a figure 8 on the top of the truck, so you have to climb up there, grab it, and bring it down. And I ended up falling through a faulty piece and landed really bad and was hospitalized for 9 months. 9 months I had to have my leg elevated above my heart for 16 out of 24 hours a day. It was awful. The new trucks today have, you can pull on the side, but the old ones had this metal thing you pull out and you jump on it and you get to the top of the truck and you grab the hose. But this truck wasn't used in 100 years. It didn't even have wheels on it. It was like just the metal spokes, and it had a wooden plank that had been there for forever, and I stood on top of it. I grabbed the hose, turned, and my left foot punctured right through the plank. It was about 3.5 feet up, and I ended up doing the splits with 250 pounds of hose. It was awful. Everybody out there was like, "Walk it off, Poole, walk it off." The problem was I'm not walking that off. That was it. So, like I said, I actually snapped all the tendons. The muscle actually rolled up in my leg and created a huge hematoma. It was awful. I almost bled to death without losing any blood externally. Die by internal bleeding. That's one of the things. But like I said, I was able to recover. I ended up being hospitalized for 9 months. But when I finally got out, I had a very difficult time finding a place to live. I had been perfect up to that point. I had my own apartment. I graduated 4th out of 72 in my class. I was doing really well. But when I was in the hospital, I ended up getting evicted because I had not paid my rent, because it's really hard to do that when you don't go to work. My family helped me put all my stuff in a storage unit. My storage unit was repossessed because I couldn't keep up on the payments. My car was repoed right from the hospital's parking lot. Medical bills got put on my credit while I was still in the hospital. And so it was an awful time, and when I got out, I ended up not being able to find anywhere that would approve me. And I ended up being homeless and ended up moving into the YMCA homeless shelter after 3 months of couch hopping with every friend and family that I had. After being couch hopping for a while, I ended up in the Y. I was fortunate enough that my very first night in the shelter, I ended up getting an award letter that paid rent anywhere I wanted to live for a year. They just happened to have an open grant for people who were homeless, and 12 months of rent paid, and I got this perfect letter that I didn't even want to fold because it was like my future in my hand. And it just so happens that 3 months later, I'm still in the shelter with a letter that pays rent anywhere that I want to live. And it's because I didn't qualify to anything. I got denied over and over and over and over again every time I applied. And it was because of I had an eviction, or it was because of property debt to a previous landlord. It was because of credit. It was because of all of these different purposes every time I went to a different place. And it's really tough to find the place that you qualify to live. I'll skip past quite a bit because I really want to get into the data behind this. But I ended up finding a place that would approve me. And it was the best moment of life. I ended up getting a phone call, and she just said, "You qualify." And I remember actually asking her, why in the world did you approve me? Everybody else denying me. And she said, and this is literally why this app exists. She said, I'm not sure what you're talking about. You just met our screening criteria. And that was it. And that was the first time ever that I knew that every one of these management companies have their own unique algorithm that they use to determine eligibility to their properties. And I just didn't meet those criteria. And I asked her for a copy of it because I wanted to see how I qualified anywhere. And it said that you can't have an eviction within 1 year with a double deposit, which is why I only got 11 months of rent paid instead of 12, because one of those months went to paying in a second deposit. It said you can't have more than 3 collections or 5 collections in credit and accounts, and I was like, I got way more than that. But it said we don't consider medical or student, right? So now I was back below 5. I mean, and just went through every single piece's criteria, and I just happened to figure it out. So fast forward, and now I am actually employed at the YMCA. I actually got an apartment, and about 2 months later, I started volunteering at the Y. I volunteered for about 7 months before they hired me on as a full-time employee. So now I'm on the other side of the table giving award letters out to people who were in my exact position. And I became obsessed, by the way, with screening criteria. Like, after I understood that, I was looking at every criteria I came across every single time I had an opportunity to, and I started to understand how it worked. So I'll give you an example. Somebody came into the office. Say we have a woman that comes in, and she is, in tears because she's having the hardest time finding a place. The first thing, I would ask her is, after I would give her an award letter. So now I'm going to be able to pay rent for a year. It's all happy. It's hugs. I'm her hero. And I was different from all the other advocates because they hadn't experienced it. So they would say things like, everything is going to be okay now. We're going to help you. We're going to cover your rent. Forget about the past. You're going to be good to go. But when I'd have a conversation, I'd ask questions like, so what happened? And then they'd say, oh, well, I used to get into it with my boyfriend all the time, and the police got called all the time, and he punched holes in the walls. He ended up evicting us, and I've been homeless ever since. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, that's a lot of non-compliance complaints. That's going to hurt you. I know most management companies don't take more than 2 within a 12-month period. Oh, and you punched holes in the wall. You probably got some damage to the previous landlord. That's going to hurt you. And an eviction, Jesus, very few people in this market will take an eviction that's 1 year old, right? So I'm going through these things, and I would give an award letter, and I would literally be able to tell who was going to be housed or not. I got so good at doing it, and this is over a 9-year period, by the way, over 4 different programs, that I could literally give an award letter out and be like, she's not going to find a place, though, or he's not going to find a place. Now, you got to remember, our vouchers, we had a 50% failure rate on every letter we gave for somebody to find housing. 50%. So half of them wasn't going to be in. And we blamed it all the time on the fact that we didn't have enough money, right? We had more money, we could hire more staff, we could help people. But being on the other side, I knew that I don't care how much staff you have, you're not going to be able to help people once you give them that letter. They're on their own, right? That's just really what it is. And it wasn't just our program. I mean, look at HUD. They had a 40% failure rate on all Section 8 vouchers. Now, HUD doesn't have the 1 to 50 ratio we had. They are like 1 to 18. So there's a huge amount of resources with them, and they still had just a slight, improvement over our vouchers. So I had an idea, and this is where the app came from. I realized that it was just basic math why people was not being approved for housing. It had nothing to do with how many advocates we had or people's personalities or anything like that. It was pure data, and so I wrote this algorithm, right? And it looks really fancy because I was good in math, but in reality, it's very simple. All it said was the amount of effort it takes for a person to find a place to live. And effort is measured by time and money, okay? So the amount of time and money that it takes for a person to find a place to live is completely dependent on what percentage of the market they qualify for, all right? So I'll give you myself. When I got out of the hospital, I probably qualified for 1% of housing. That's 10 out of 1,000 units. So the second part of the equation, simple probability equation tells you that's 100 attempts before you get lucky to find one of those, favorable outcomes. The second part of the equation says, now once we know the amount of effort required, we got to look at how much time and money the individual has. If the amount of time and money required on average is more or greater than how much the family has, then the housing search is going to result in failure. Period. I don't care who you are, what program you are. If the amount of effort that this family has to put out to find a place to live is greater than the amount that they have in resources, they're not going to find housing unless they get lucky, right? Majority of the time. So I wanted to create a system that would reduce the amount of time and effort required to zero. Because if I could make it to where the amount of money and time required to find approved housing was zero, then 100% of people have more than zero, of resources. So I can create housing for everybody. So I went out, I actually pitched Prosper Portland. I won't go too much into it, but there just randomly was this, I say random, and a lot of people were like, oh, it was meant to be. But either way, there was an event that Prosper Portland put on, and it was to solve civic problems, right? So people applied in housing like me, but a lot of people were like in food or in energy or in like all these other areas that the city is trying to solve problems for. And it was called the Startup PDX Challenge. And I pitched that organization, that big fund, and I actually ended up winning somehow. So I won that event. It was 300 people. I still remember showing up that first day, and it was cars in the parking lot wrapped with company logos. And you get inside, and it was teams of 4 and 5 with matching T-shirts and like, tablets and all this stuff. And I remember being like, I just wasted $125 that I could have spent on anything else trying to be a part of this thing. How much cheese and crackers do I have to eat to make up for all the money I just wasted? Right. But it ended up, and I even remember I had my little, my packet that I put together, and it was like 10 pieces of paper that I had typed up this really good idea. And I even went out and got those little clear plastic top and bottom so it makes it look all professional. But that's what I went in with. And 300 people, and they did the first cut to 150 people, and they did the next cut, and then there was the 20 last finalists pitched in person. And my pitch was what I just told you. I work at the Y. 50% of the people are going to be back in their cars in this month. But if you allow me to go out and collect the unique screening criteria of every single management company in Oregon, I could put them in one database and then pull the renter's background check and filter it against every single vacancy in Oregon simultaneously. Let them know everywhere they qualify for. And they funded me, and we built it. OneApp launched last year. Yes. OneApp launched December 12th, 2017, and in 1 year, we housed 5,600 families, which was more families than every program in Oregon that's combined. Right? So it was that powerful. But I'm going to show you what it looks like. This is the map. We didn't make it complicated. I didn't know how the internet was going to be here. I would have did it in real time because it's so awesome to watch them. Green, red, red, yellow, green, green, and it starts going really fast when it starts to calculate. But right now in Portland, if you use OneApp to find housing, it is literally, we have about 4,000 vacancies. It's the equivalent of spending $200,000 in application fees and going around and buying properties for 11 years, done in 30 seconds from your phone. So it is and we use data to actually show people every vacancy that they qualify for. So this was supposed to be the end-all of access to housing. This tool that right now has 4.8 stars that everybody loves to use, we spend $0 in advertising, and month after month, more and more and more users, because when people found out there was an app that, for free, shows you everywhere you qualify, it's really a no-brainer to give it a shot. But what's crazy is that the intended outcomes that we expected to happen didn't happen. So this is when you actually believe something so strongly, but you realize that people are going to be people no matter what. I'm going to ask you guys, if this was you, and this was your background check we pulled, and you saw everywhere you qualified for and where you didn't, would you expect a person to do when they look for housing using this map? Most people will assume that they're going to apply to the green pins, right? Because you are approved there. You do not qualify for this place. Why would you send your application to this place? In real life, there's about 30% denial rate. There's about 50% conditional, and the rest are approved applications with the everyday person. This is OneApp's data. 33% of people apply to properties they don't qualify to live at. 57% of people qualified to conditionally approved listings, and only 10% of people applied to the freaking green pins, right? It drove me insane. It actually kept me up at night so badly because, see, we were supposed to monetize this at some point, right? I had to start it off with free, everything costs, but the plan that I raised $3 million, and it was because once I created this, I get all the renters, which we did, and then we were going to be able to charge properties because we were going to be the first company to ever send you pre-approved leads. You don't have to, Craigslist is going to send you a bunch of junk, right? So is apartments.com. It's just a bunch of random people with nobody knows anything. But guess what? OneApp sends you the same junk if you're on the property side, right? Right. People aren't junk. But if you're on the property side, you're not getting pre-approved leads. You're getting the same outcome. So we actually did a survey, and we reached out to a ton of people, and we said, why did you apply to this property? It came down to two things. One, people have community, right? I go to school here. My kids go to school here. My family is here. My daycare is here. My life is in this area. So it doesn't matter how many green pins are in Beaverton or Hillsborough or Tigard or any of the other places if I need to live in Gresham or if I need to live in Vancouver. So I will tell you, this was one of the biggest eye-opening things because when I heard people's stories, community, you always hear about loss of community impacting people, but I will tell you right now that community probably, it should be considered as income. It has so much value for a lot of people. I mean, if your daycare center is your neighbor that you cook dinner for, and in exchange she watches your children, and then the neighbor upstairs, you guys all use their car because they don't drive, but as long as you pick up their groceries when you go grocery shopping, and you get the kids washed, and you all have dinner and watch a movie at one apartment, and all got to put up $5. I mean, you literally, it's like the equivalent of. This is one of the things I wish I could quantify what the impact community has, but I can tell you that you can have the same income, but if you move that person from their community to a completely different location, that is the first time they're going to feel what poverty really feels like. Because now your kid's hair is not done because your braider is not in this area, so you got to pay for it, right? Your neighbor's not there when your kids are going from school, so you have to pay for some kind of daycare for them to go to afterwards. I mean, every single part of your life that you were able to use community for is now requires cash. And so you go from being okay to being extremely destitute if you get taken away from your community. And we got to learn that through people's stories and communication, right? So now we realize that, okay, fine. These green pins don't matter. You need to be here for the majority of people. But there were green pins there too. So why didn't you apply to those green pins? And that was the second reason. People care and have an idea of where they want to live, right? I want washer and dryer hookups. I don't want a washer and dryer in unit, and I don't like a laundromat, right? I need this many square feet because I don't like being in cramped units. I mean, I'll tell you how strong this feeling is. 2 weeks ago, we had a person come to the office, and we asked them this exact question. I found right there on her site a 3-bedroom that she was looking for that was the square footage and in the area, and it was approved. And I said, why aren't you going to this one? What's wrong with this property? And she's like, oh, let me see that one. And she clicks it, and she's like, oh, I got an email about that one. And I forget that OneApp. If you put something in what you're looking for, we send you emails when new listings come up that meet your criteria. And she was like, yeah, that one has blue bedrooms. I'm like, okay. She's like, I have 2 daughters. That is enough for somebody to say, I'm not putting my 2 daughters in those blue bedrooms. And I will then apply to a denied listing. Kid you not. So what we found is that people do not apply to where they qualify. Even OneApp, with the information we give, does not change human behavior. People will apply to where they want to live, no matter what. That is how housing is, and no one else could have ever come up with that because no one ever built a tool that gave people the ability to apply to approved listings. We did, and we found out it didn't matter. So for me, it was tough because I couldn't monetize it, and my entire theory on what created access to housing didn't actually pan out. So we did learn that the people who, I literally built it, and this was the problem, that it came from my mind, and my mind was from a place that I was at, right? And when I was homeless, I lost community already. I didn't have that anymore. I was already in a shelter, right? I lost everything. And so we found is people who are in that space, they go to the green pins because they're starting over. But that's like 1% of people. 99% of people look for housing this way. And so we only helped a very tiny percent of people directly by building this app. So we ended up having to pivot. This deck, I'm going to make sure what slides are in here so I don't get too far. So the other benefit of data is even though people didn't get qualified, we can see exactly why you missed it. I can see that this property required 5 accounts and collections or less, and you had 7. And if you could have remedied 2 accounts, you would have been approved. Or I can see, if it was an eviction, or if it was criminal history, or if it was income, credit, rental history. These are the reasons people didn't qualify. Red is they were denied. Nobody conditionally approves in Portland, apparently, because either that or the line is so thin that you can't really see it. Criminal, everybody, because of the new law, you have to be able to give your personal story on what criminal happened, so you can no longer, it's technically illegal to just approve or deny somebody based on a crime. You have to actually do an in-person assessment. Income, huge denial rate. People don't make that 3 times the rent, and a lot of people make just below the 3 times the rent, and they have that. Credit, the biggest one in rental history, has the largest impact on people that is adverse, even though the denial rate isn't so big, but it hurts people a lot by not having verifiable rental history. So we had this information, and we were able to develop products that create access to housing. That was our new business model. We said, listen, if people are going to apply to green pins, ever seen that Jeff Bezos thing where they went to Africa? Sorry, not Jeff. It was because he's Amazon. The one who did Zappos shoes. Yes. Where he was like, a lot of people. It's all about perspective, right? He gave that story about when people went to Africa and he sent 2 salesmen, and one guy was like, I can't sell any shoes here. Nobody's wearing shoes in Africa. And then the other salesman said, send everything you got. Nobody's wearing shoes in Africa, right? So it's literally depends on how you look at it. and so that's what we did at OneApp. We were like, nobody's going to apply to where they qualify to live. But then I'm like, oh, wait, people are going to fight tooth and nail to get into properties that they don't qualify for. So our business model needs to be identifying the problem and then building the tools in the app to get them to qualify where they want to live. So we started from the top down. The number one impact that would have gotten people into housing, and this is how you are supposed to use data, if I say so myself. We figured out that 71% of people that were denied, 71% that were denied or just wasn't approved, would have been approved if they had a cosigner. Cosigner is a mitigating piece, a tool for every management company in Oregon, but yet only 2% of people apply with a cosigner. So why is something that has almost infinite ability to get you instant housing have such a tool that almost nobody uses? And it's because very few people have access to a qualified cosigner. Right? I mean, they got to make 6 times the rent. They got to have all these other things. And then even if you do have somebody who does that, it's hard to get somebody to sign on dotted line and be a cosigner and take all the risk for your rental, right? So we decided to build a marketplace. And so we use data to develop all of our tools. This is OneApp 2.0 that goes live June 1st. So this is a sneak peek of what the site will look like. Right. Instead of just telling you approved, denied, or conditional, we actually break down exactly what your issues are, and we actually highlight the tool that will help you get in to the property. So I'm not supposed to give out too much of the deal, but OneApp Guarantee is a co-signing product. If you don't qualify for a property, you can, instead of paying 1 month's deposit, you can pay a 1 month's non-refundable fee that's the same amount as a deposit. So basically, instead of a deposit, you just have a non-refundable deposit, and we will act as a co-signer for you. And we put 35% of all the guarantees collected into a bond that allows a landlord to claim against if you were to be evicted. So now you get into a property, and if you on the app, if you were to click this button, this tool from our toolbox, it would change this and this to green, and you would see that you are approved to this property with this product. And so when you apply, you actually apply with the OneApp guarantee. We pitched this to the city of Portland, and we showed the data that proved that a guarantee could get 71% of people access to housing. And I said, but this is the problem. I can't approve everybody because there's an algorithm behind this based on your actual ability to not qualify, to default, right? So, like, for example, we go down to 2 times the rent. Anything below 2 times the rent, it's just too much of a risk. If you make 1.5 times the rent, I can't co-sign for you, right? If you have more than 1 eviction within 1 year period, I can't co-sign for you, right? So there's some people that we don't qualify to do, and I needed to ask the city for help. They have a fund called Rentwell that has not been successful, really very much. And they allowed the guarantee to plug into that fund for defaults, allowing OneApp to co-sign for 100% of Oregonians starting this summer. Everybody's approved. So that is going to be, I cannot wait for that. We actually already signed up companies now. We have 26 PM companies that said, you're going to cover everything for these people? Sure, we'll take the guarantee. I'm like, great. So when that goes out, game changer this summer. OneApp Premium is a product. To be honest, I didn't want to do the OneApp Premium because we literally show every single person every reason what the issue was. But because we launched that already. We launched the premium about 3 months ago. So now you can actually see you must remedy this. Your credit score is off by 6 points, like exact detail for everything. And data shows 75% of time spent on the website are people looking at scorecards for properties, which I expected because they can actually see exactly why for every listing. But because it has so much time spent on it, we had to monetize it, which being a founder, you have a board, you can't always control the outcome. But we only charge $20, but now you will be able to see everywhere you qualify and what the issue, which ones you failed. But if you want to see the detail, you have to upgrade to premium, right? $20 to see it. I got it. We're not a nonprofit. I have no choice but to generate revenue somehow, so I had to do that. RentTrack is a tool that's going to be awesome. I probably should be going into these details with these tools, but it's a really cool one because it allows us to pull. So we collect your previous rental history from your previous landlords. It's all automated through our platform. Sends them out emails. They fill out the form. It goes right into your account, and it shows this is how long you lived there. This is how many 72-hour notices, how many bounce checks, how many everything that they reported based on your tenancy. But we are able to take that rental history and put it on your credit report and use it as mortgage history, which is a huge boost to credit if you don't own a home. So, because we used the same tool that the mortgage people use, it actually tells you what it could boost your score to. So the second your previous landlord responds, you unlock the new card, right? It's not going to be called RentTrack. That's our partner. This is not meant for public view. But it'll be called something cool. It'll have some OneApp in front of it like everything else does. These are all, besides this one and this one, all the other ones are all partners. But it'll literally say, use RentTrack, and we will be able to boost your score by 42 points. Exact amount, right? So if you click on a property, which I said credit was the biggest piece, and a lot of them are like, your credit score has to be above this, or we can't rent to you. It literally says, you can pay a double deposit, which is another $1,500 on top of the regular $1,500 deposit, on top of the move-in of $1,500, or you can try Rent Track. And for $39, we'll boost you above that score. And then they just buy Rent Track. And then once you buy that, it does a second pop-up that says, if you decide to use our OneApp to pay your rent every month, we'll record all of your rental payments from here on out to the credit bureaus for $3.99 a month, right? And so we do that. So I'll give you an example of the difference. If we would have gotten every single management company in Portland to sign up and use OneApp and pay $299 per apartment complex, we would have been able to generate about $3.5 million a year. Now, obviously, you're not going to get every company to pay you to be on the platform. With the new marketplace model, we don't have to pitch management companies on virtually anything. And so we have no sales force. And the amount of revenue that this marketplace, based on, because we use the data and we can see exactly how many times each product would have been used last year to get into housing, and which time was more economical, right? So if paying off one account is $150, or buying a cosigner is $1,200, you're just gonna pay off that account. So we wouldn't say you're gonna sell our cosigner product in this situation, but we could see what situations it was the most economical. Paying off 7 accounts for $5,000 is way more expensive than buying a cosigner product, right? So, or swapping out your deposit. So this toolbox in Portland will generate $60 million in revenue a year. 60 million, right? So it's the night and day difference. And so we launched we had some management companies that literally said, can we just start sending you cosigner people today, even without the website being updated? And we were like, I don't see why not. So we let them start sending it. We've already co-signed for 9 people, and we just launched it a week before it last, and not even a launch, just like, sure, if you come across somebody, send them our way. And so we've had one apartment complex already do 3 co-signers, and they were $1,500 rents each. They were denied, so either go home or you can swap out your deposit for a non-refundable. So we already getting people into housing that are denied, but that one apartment would have paid us $299. They've already been $4,500. So that's the difference between the 60 million or $3.5 million. So way more attractive way to use the data and to actually create access to housing. We have a tool that requires no government assistance. Like we are a for-profit company that generates access to housing by using data and then determining what tools will solve the problems for the households, right? So that's a really unique way to use data. There's maybe more slides here, but I don't really have much more to talk about. So, it's just one more slide. That's what it looks like. I just kind of you click it, then it shows you that it does meet it, and that's it. So that's the toolbox concept, and that's it. I don't know what my time is. We're good? All right, well, that's it. Thank you guys very much.